Veteran sailors of the North Sea have one terrifying golden rule. If your ship loses power, but the radio suddenly turns on in the dark, never listen to the static. Mainstream history tells us the ocean is just water and currents. But those who spend enough time isolated in the freezing blackness know the truth. The sea remembers everything it takes. And sometimes it uses your deepest guilt as bait. In the winter of 1967, the British government banned independent rock and roll stations, forcing them out into international waters. These were the pirate radio ships. Rusty, decaying vessels anchored miles off the English coast, broadcasting music into the dead of night. Elias Vance was the midnight DJ for Radio Sovereign. He was 28 years old, and he was completely consumed by guilt. Exactly 1 year earlier, Elias and his younger brother, Thomas, were caught in a violent riptide off the coast of Cornwall. Elias had held onto his brother's hand with everything he had, but the water was too strong. Thomas slipped from his grip and disappeared beneath the freezing waves. His body was never recovered. Elias took the isolated pirate radio job because the deafening roar of the ship's generators and the loud music were the only things that could drown out the memory of his brother's screaming. It was 3 a.m. A massive, unnatural storm hit the North Sea. The rusty ship pitched violently, throwing equipment across the cramped, claustrophobic broadcasting cabin. Elias was completely alone, sealed inside the heavy acoustic steel room deep in the ship's hull. Suddenly, the main power grid failed. The loud rock music died. The cabin was plunged into the dim, sickly red glow of the emergency backup lights. Over the roaring thunder outside, Elias realized the heavy steel door to his cabin was jammed shut. He was trapped. Then, the impossible happened. The dead broadcasting console on his desk suddenly crackled with loud hissing static. The red on-air light slowly flickered to life. Even though the transmitter had no power. Elias slowly approached the microphone. The static on the headphones shifted, morphing into the heavy, rhythmic sound of ocean waves crashing. And then, cutting through the water, a voice. Elias, it's so cold down here. Elias's blood turned to ice. It was Thomas. The voice was distorted, wet and echoing, as if speaking through a lungful of seawater. Elias fell to his knees, gripping the edge of the console, tears streaming down his face. The crushing guilt of the past year broke him completely. Tommy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to let go. Elias screamed into the dead microphone, his chest heaving with desperate, broken sobs. The voice on the radio didn't sound angry. It sounded completely calm, unnaturally calm. The water is rising, Elias, but it's okay. I came back for you. I'm going to hold your hand this time. A freezing drop of water hit Elias's neck. He looked down. Dark, freezing seawater was rapidly pooling around his boots. But it wasn't coming from the ceiling. It was violently bubbling up from the solid steel floorboards of the sealed cabin. Panic overtook his grief. The water was rising impossibly fast to his knees, to his waist, freezing his muscles and stealing his breath. Elias pounded frantically on the jammed steel door, screaming for the crew, but the acoustic walls absorbed every sound. The water reached his chest. He looked back at the broadcasting console. The red on-air light was still glowing beneath the rising water. The final sound he heard before the black water swallowed the room was his brother's voice, whispering directly into his ear from the empty room. Don't let go. The next morning, the Coast Guard boarded Radio Sovereign. The storm had passed. The remaining crew was completely unharmed. They finally managed to cut open the jammed steel door to Elias's broadcasting cabin, expecting a tragedy, but the cabin was bone dry. There was no water, no structural damage. Elias Vance was completely gone. The only thing left behind in the empty room was resting perfectly on the center of the mixing desk. It was Elias's silver pocket watch. Inside the glass face, completely submerged in trapped, freezing seawater, was a tiny photograph of Thomas Dot. There are places in this world where the veil between grief and reality is torn, where the things we lose in the dark come back to collect us. Welcome to Classified Britannia. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and whatever you do, never listen to the static.